I wouldn't say our spring with the cold frame was a huge success. We did enjoy produce out of it, so it was a success. It wasn't like a complete flop, but it wasn't just like, oh my gosh, we got an amazing amount of produce. That was so great.
I wanted to start this video with the construction of the cold frame. If you would just like to skip to the end where we are talking about what we think of it, please use the time codes provided. We made this cold frame back in March when it was still pretty cold outside, as you can tell by some of the clothes that we're wearing in this video. And we decided to make it in the garage, partially because it was cold and also so we had a nice flat surface to do the project on. And we kind of just picked away at it. I'm not honestly sure how long it took us to get this done, but it was just something that we wanted to try this year, and we just kind of put it together on a whim. We did make this out of 2x2s, the frame, and these are 2x2s that we ripped from 2x4s. So we got 2x4s and then cut them in half so that they became 2x2s. And we did this because, well, to save a little bit of money, and because the 2x2s at the store didn't look very good, and the 2x4s at the store looked much better. This backboard that we're putting on here, this was a piece of scrap plywood. And here's us getting some more of the framing material ready. I think we're going to be onto the lid shortly. This was us figuring out how to do all of these angles so the lid would open and close properly. That was a little bit of a time-consuming task for us, but we got it figured out, and here we are making the lid, the frame of the lid. We did choose to use pine that is untreated for this project because we figure with our dry climate it'll be okay if we have to replace that bottom 4x4 construction that's going to be recessed in the ground a little bit or have the dirt up next to it, and that's no big deal to us. And for our climate, that's just what we chose to do. This is us loading it into the truck to drive it over to where we are putting the cold frame. We decided to put it next to our greenhouse. This is my husband getting the ground all prepped and putting those rebar stakes in there to secure that base. At this point, we added some compost and some peat moss into this bed and got it all nice and prepped. And we're just about ready to put the cold frame top on it. Yep, there we go. And we are screwing it down. We decided to screw it down this way so if we ever want to take the cold frame off of that bed, it'll be really easy. This is us getting the roof on. This is one change we would definitely make. We would have put the panels the other way so the water would flow when it rains off of the front instead of the sides, but this is just what we had with materials and how we made it, so we're going to make it work. Then we spray foam the sides to kind of hopefully give it a little bit more insulation. And yes, that didn't come out super pretty, but it is working and it's what we chose to do at the time. And this is us making sure the lid works. We did a lot to make sure that lid opened all the way up and rested on the ground. All right, we are on to planting. We started these plants about 5 weeks before we put them in the cold frame. And after a little bit, they looked like this. And at the end, they looked like this.
So today it is July 2nd and our cold frame is about done. We started our plants for this cold frame March 18th and then we planted everything out here April 22nd. So that's how long this stuff has been in the ground. We have already harvested a bunch of stuff.
We've gotten beets, lettuce, kale,
Bok choy, yeah, type of cabbage. There are some things that we put in here that have just completely didn't make it at all. So the things that we did put in here, let me grab my list real quick. The things that we did put in here were 2 different kinds of broccoli, Swiss chard. We have got Swiss chard also, and we really do like that. We have a really good recipe that we make with it. Anyways, we tried 2 different kinds of cabbage. Only the baby bok choy cabbage is the one that really took off. We also did 2 different kinds of lettuce, prize head lettuce and Paris lettuce, and those have both done awesome. The spinach bolted right away, so we didn't really get much of that. The kale, of course, did awesome. We also planted early purple Vienna kohlrabi. That did okay. It's still growing. Wasn't really super awesome. And then we did beets. We were just kind of looking for some cold weather stuff to do. So the reason that we decided to do this was to try to get some produce early, because normally we start our regular garden, and we have quite a few different gardens. Normally we start our regular garden the first week of June or the last week of May, and that's when we start getting stuff out there. So to have a little bit of extra time, growing. We thought that that would be super awesome, and we kind of threw this together on a whim. Got an idea. Hey, why don't we? Oh, a cold frame. Let's do that. Let's try that. Something I haven't tried yet. So, yeah.
So we threw it together, and then we kind of, realized that our nighttime lows are still frigid into May a lot of times, and you pretty much have to heat this no matter, either way. Like we heat our greenhouse when it gets really cold at night, down into the low 20s or whatnot. No matter what you do to these boxes with, or greenhouse boxes, you're going to have to heat them because it doesn't retain heat that well, no matter how many heat sinks or whatnot you have in there. All your plants are going to die if you don't heat them.
So I'm hoping that in the future we can also try some things that are supposed to be more cold hardy. Like I know the kale can kind of like even live with snow on it.
If it's mature.
Yeah, when it's mature and established.
If you plant it as a little baby plant out there and it gets down to 20 degrees, 25 degrees or whatever, it's going to die.
Yeah.
So
this was our spring planting of this cold frame. We are going to do a fall planting of the cold frame too, to just kind of see what we can get into the season. Although our fall time is harvest and it's crazy and we're super busy, and farmers market and just trying to get everything in from outside, all of the food in from outside before it freezes. So it is a huge scramble for us, but I guess we'll take on one more thing.
We thought that, worst case scenario, if this doesn't work out, we don't like it or whatever, we have another greenhouse space we can put started plants in.
Yeah. So next spring, we might end up putting a little heater in here. We'll see. But yeah, a little bit about the construction. We used 2x2s for the framing, which was really nice instead of 2x4s. It is really light. If we want to unscrew this part from it has a 4x4 frame on it. If we want to unscrew it, take it off and kind of work this bed a little bit, that'll be super easy to do. So we kind of designed it with that in mind. We also use these SunTough or
clear panels, plastic panels. We thought about doing plastic over everything, but with the winds we get here, especially in the spring, we decided that why not just use something that's going to last for 20 years probably, at least, and so we splurged and bought, I think we bought 6 panels or something, which isn't that much, and it should last for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely just poke a hole through it. If we would have just done the plastic, poke a hole through it with a weed whipper, so many ways. We could have just poked a hole right through it. So we opted to do this.
The panels are more expensive, but to not have to go out and rewrap our cold frame every year, that's going to pay for itself in just the headache of not having to do that every year.
Yep.
Let alone the fact that you don't have to worry about things breaking while you have baby plants growing in there or whatnot.
Yep. We also did use the roofing shims that go in between the plastic and the wood that kind of bulge out. And those are pretty leaky, so we did also spray those with some spray foam, which you can see the spray foam like everywhere. I know that's not super attractive, but it works for now. We might end up insulating it a little better, but like he said, it doesn't really retain much heat anyways, just because this is just a little thin layer of plastic. So, yeah. We'll show you a little bit about how it functions.
Our lid is clear plastic, so when it's cold out, this stays shut all day. It's a heck of a good little greenhouse when you have the lid closed in the spring and it's cold out still. And then we put these big long garden latches down here to secure it during the day in case we get a big wind. There's no way that's going to blow off. It's very tough. It's not going to blow away and serves its purpose.
So we opted to make it so that it would open all the way and lay flat back.
And then we also made ourselves some custom semi-openers. So if you have a day that's like not real hot but not real cold, kind of in between, 50 degrees for a high or something like that, you take one of our custom vent openers that we have a lot of. You can order them off our website and put it there in the frame, and that has worked. If it got real windy, we wouldn't do that. But yeah, anyway, that's what we did a lot of the days of spring because we didn't get around to making a better semi-open.
Yeah. So the plan is to make a better way to prop it open. That's a little bit more windproof because our wind does come from that direction over this direction, so it could just take the lid right off, really. But that's what we did this spring.
So we built this with our spring wind in mind, which we get, 60, 70 mile an hour winds a lot of times in the spring, and gusts. And anyway, so we put a 4x4 frame leveled it all out, and then we drilled holes through it, and then drove 1/2 inch rebar stakes that are 18 inches long down into our immensely hard ground here to hold everything down, and there's no way it's going to get lifted off the foundation.
So, and then we did kind of use a little bit of scrap. The back plywood wall, that's scrap.
You may wonder like why we plywooded this instead of using panels. It's because this is north facing, so all of our sun's going to come off that direction, which would be south, and this is not going to affect any of the sunlight coming in.
The way we oriented this on our property is we made it really accessible to us for the times of year when we will be using it. So it's right by our greenhouse. Since we're going to be out there anyways, we thought this would be a really good place. We can also still park next to it. So it was just kind of an empty, unused area, and you know, we like growing things, so we decided to put in a cold frame over here.
We decided not to do 2x4 frames. We were thinking about that, but 2x2 was more than enough sturdiness. I think I would save money and weight.
So we're excited to try this for the fall again. I wouldn't say our spring with the cold frame was a huge success. We did enjoy produce out of it, so it was a success. It wasn't like a complete flop, but it wasn't just like, oh my gosh, we got an amazing amount of produce. That was so great. I mean, compared to our other gardens, this is not a big space. We just wanted this to have a little bit of greens to eat a little bit earlier. And so it served its purpose in that way, but it wasn't like blowing up with produce and just like going crazy off the charts. So hopefully in the fall we get another little bump, because it would be nice to have some of the stuff at that time of the year that we kind of, when our garden's done, we let our chickens in there, so it's just completely done. And that would be kind of nice to have some produce that's kind of set aside that can kind of go into the fall a little bit.
We built this thinking that we would extend our season more than it did, because it really only extended our season 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe. So it's, for us, it's like in Montana here, we don't really have a cold frame season. It's just all of a sudden you're going to get cold and then not so cold.
For us, that was kind of a big thing that we feel like we learned with this cold frame, which is kind of an unfortunate thing, is we feel like we don't really have a cold frame season. Now, maybe we just didn't start the correct produce to have a cold frame season. I don't know. Maybe it's a, error on our part. But with how cold it is, and then how all of a sudden it's like super hot here in Montana in Zone 4, we just didn't really feel like it was super beneficial, although it did serve a little purpose. So with all that said, thanks for watching our video about our cold frame. If you enjoyed this video, if you'd like to see some more, please like and subscribe. We'll share some of the stuff that we try that maybe wasn't a huge hit, kind of like this. I mean, it served a purpose, but it wasn't like phenomenal. And then we'll share some stuff that is kind of impressive with the amount of produce that we get at the end of the year, at least the amount of produce we're hoping to get at the end of the year. Every year is different. So please like and subscribe, and thanks so much for watching.